this is our first walkthrough for rapid feedback. So the purpose of this is to shift to a focus on academics and a focus on outcome. So the first thing I actually want us to do is looking at the rubric, align, make sure that we're aligned. So on the front of it, you'll see creating the conditions and execution, which is what we're going to be focused on. And then on the back is the portion of the TCP, which is cultural learning, that we're also going to line up today. So let's take a minute to look through those. So as we're shifting to academic outputs, what is it that we're looking for in a classroom to know that kids are actually learning based on this rubric?
Teacher knows what the exemplars are to be looking for.
What else? Like what shows us success based on this rubric?
Based on the way that they're circulating and give batch feedback.
And then if we look at culture of learning on the other side, how do we know that a teacher set up a strong culture of learning? What evidence could we pull to show that?
When scholars are able to show higher leverage thinking based on the lesson.
The fact that scholars are taking their learning into their own hands by taking pride in their work and taking risks.
Yeah, for sure. So, when we go in again, we're going to be looking for the RF section, the planning to execution section, and we're going to be thinking about, we're going to come back out and we're going to ignore them on the cultural learning piece. While you're in there, I want everybody to be filling out. The execution section. Do we see all these pieces of the RF rubric? And then take notes on what you think are examples of a strong culture of learning. Because both of you are culture deans, I also want you to rate her culture 1 through 5. How does it feel? How does the classroom feel like we did last week with using the credit and demerit system? So like a 1 through 5 is that succinctly used with fidelity. And then for me, I'm her coach, so I think about, before we jump into this, one, how has she been on her stack audits? Her stack audits have been strong. They've been very strong. She's had consistently high numbers, and the biggest thing that she's working on is making sure that their analysis matches, the analysis of evidence matches the idea, and it's not just redundant, has been what she's working on. So as we go in, we're going to talk about the RF execution, culture of learning, and then we're going to come up with an action step for her. That type of observation feels a little bit different because instead of just standing at the perch, we're actually looking through student work, right? So we were circulating through to see where students were at. And before we actually get into like what are the gaps and what do we need to work on, I want to start with some glows. What did Michelle do well?
I thought it was effective just now when she realized that multiple scholars were off track. And she had them all put their pencil in their hand, raise it in the air to ensure that they all had a pencil. And she said, now we're ready to move on.
She got Raisha back on track by allowing her to, after she got a deduction, she allowed her to, like, her voice to be heard. Like the fact that she had the incentive, the chart thing with the points.
Yep.
The page was clear. How to attack the problem.
Okay. Anything else?
Academic with the CFS on the paper itself, that was pretty useful.
Yeah. Also, like to add to that, for me, it felt like her routine is it's very routinized. Like the kids know every day we start class doing this attack the prompt, and this is the system that we use. So she didn't need, to stop and give directions every 30 seconds because those routines were built. Now I want to talk about culture. So when we're thinking about action steps during this arc, we have to ask ourselves, was culture a hindrance to the class? If culture was a hindrance to the class, then our action step is going to be similar to what we did in week 6, right? So scanning, narrating, standing in the perch, those types of things. But if hindrance was not a hindrance to her academics, then we jump to the actual academic action step. So do you guys feel like culture was a hindrance in her class? No? Okay. So based on our rubric then, if you turn to the other page, cultural learning, where do you think she lands?
That's a 3.
1, 2, 1, 3.
I don't know if it's fair because I wasn't in there for that long period of time. But from what I did see, it looked pretty like solid. I would say 3. And the reason I would say 3 was because any scholars that were off track, she immediately called them out, gave them -2, and moved on from it. So
What evidence do you have to give it to?
So like based on the language of the rubric, there were times of like communicating high expectations or risk. Like scholars were compliant, they were doing the work, but I didn't see any like extra pride in the work as I'm circulating, like reading answer choices. They're very basic. Like also, I think it speaks to like going back and like fixing things, and it was pretty much attack the prompt. Okay, I attack the prompt. So like the culture is in the place it needs to be, where like scholars are following the instruction, but there's no above and beyond evidence that I saw.
And also, why'd you give it a 3?
I looked at, for kind of the same reason, I think I just went towards 3 instead of 2. I landed in the middle, was that there was no, there was only sometimes high expectations for work product. When she was giving the, well, so this might be a 2, but when she was giving the, reading the exemplar and having them correct it, the exemplar did not see that exemplar, so it wasn't holding them to a high enough standard. But sometimes in work expectations, she gave the direction, it was like, this is what you have to meet while you're doing this, but then sometimes it wasn't done.
It was like, sorry, even one thing I understood, like all the, and I know that was the exemplar answer, but like all of the answers were exactly the same. Like kids were almost just, from what I could see, was just copy what I wrote pretty much. And if you're asking questions like about racism, the Ku Klux Klan, who are they? Like the Ku Klux Klan, from the answers I got, is just a gang of white people who, that's who they are. And I know this is 6th grade, but like, they also, and I don't know if I'm going too far off just from knowing like curriculum,
Yeah.
because that may be unfair, I don't know, but like I do know racism and segregation is covered in the 5th grade curriculum, so
Yeah.
I would expect that in 6th grade their answers would be more, or at least pushed to a further degree.
Yeah, so I actually align with the 2, and my reason is similar to that. So this lesson was to build background knowledge because they're just about to start Unit 2, but the answers that I saw in student work ended up being, like what you said, very sort of superficial and not necessarily about what I know that the kids know. And I didn't see a lot of evidence of her circulating to like actually giving feedback in that circulation. I did see her circulating to check that work was complete, but I didn't see her circulating to actually check work. Does that make sense? So that's why I would ultimately give her a 2. So
what would give
Yeah.
her a 3?
I was about to ask that. What do you guys think would give her a 3?
Well, the exemplar that she picks would be a next level, a little bit above where they currently are, to push them into that. So through her circulation, she would pick an exemplar. I'm trying to make this concise. Through her circulation, she would pick an exemplar that would push the majority of the scholars' thinking to that next level.
I think also some student voice, whether that's turn and talk or discussion around the question to push scholarly thinking, as opposed to just like, here's the definition, write that down. And then like after that discourse, like I think it would be great for her to come back and like stamp, okay guys, this is what we talked about. The Ku Klux Klan is da 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 da. Make sure your answer represents something like this.
Right. And I think that would end up putting the more thinking work on scholars than just taking an exemplar and saying, okay, copy it because this is what the answer is.
So like
Right.
just having a basic that the scholars are able to show it clear, like who, what, and why. Okay.
Right. And then having more student voice in that would take her from a 2 to a 3. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's take 2 minutes to actually write out an action step, and this is an academic action step, but we still want to be as clear as we were with the week 6 stuff. Right? So like naming the gap, and then what are the 2 to 3 moves to push her to the next level?
How hard will you push
You can jump right in, don't you?
Yep. Yeah, start your action steps, and then I'll start with you.
I said incorporate scholar voice to push scholarly thinking by one, circulating while seeking out exemplar, two, framing the discourse, three, have 2 to 3 students share out starting with exemplar, four, stamp takeaways, and have students
I
jot.
know X, Y, and
So
Z.
yours was
Explain, and then now opening it up the whole group, and it's like, scholars, I'm hearing you say X,
I was
Y, and Z,
running with,
but that's not fully like understanding.
So I
what
did,
explaining
sometimes I
is,
didn't
they
have the
are.
word in the line.
So I'm gonna take 30 seconds
So
to
I
send
said
you to
that
a quick
we'll have
20 turn
scholars
it
follow
off,
clear
and
on
then
what
give them
bylaw
the 30 seconds for
questions.
turn it off.
And then
as
while
you're
we're circulating,
walking around the
looking for
room,
that
find that mid-level and the high-level answer that you want, call in the mid-level first, and then allow high-level scholars to push their thinking.
what?
Every single time you,
So you're having her do
you end independent work,
to produce.
sorry, every single time you lead a discussion after independent work, ensure scholars are doing the high level thinking by having a pen in hand with the tracker, truly reading student work to know who to call on to build, and then giving more opportunity for student voice via turn and talks or hand raised by asking student questions. You guys good? What do you have?
I stuck with like scholar voice. I said incorporate scholar voice to push scholarly thinking by circulating while seeking out exemplar, framing the discourse, have 2 to 3 students share out, starting with exemplar, stamp takeaways, and have students jot.
Cool. And then I'm sure we could discuss.
Every single time you lead a discussion after, you ensure scholars are doing the highest level thinking by one, making sure that they have a pen in their hand tracking the tracker, reading student work to know who to call on to build, and give opportunities for like student voice and more student discourse. And what that would look like is having like returning talks, and then making sure that you hit like the mid-level and the high-level scholars, so that you know that the high-level scholars are going to build on from what the mid-level scholars.
I want us actually to take a step back. This is the first time that we've done a rapid feedback observation. The first time that like we've actually taken, not just stood at the perch, but actually looked at student work, and then come up with an academic action step and talked about the actual culture of learning, rather than just following MVP and following those types of cycles. What is our takeaway from these types of observations? Like, what are you taking from this? Like, what are some of the steps that we need to do moving forward when we do a rapid feedback observation?
Look at the, never mind. I misinterpreted the question.
If I understood it correctly, we would make sure we ensure that like we're circulating, looking at scholarly work, listening to the types of questions being asked from teacher to scholar, listening to the student discourse.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm checking for like understanding, just to ensure that like if you have the criteria for success, making sure the teachers are actually going through it, and then they're bringing it back over to like stamp the key points that you want them to take away from the day.
And then we decided to do an academic action step. Why did we make that decision?
Because culture was not interfering with academics.
Right. When would we do a culture one?
When culture is off.
Right, when it feels off, we still give those action steps, because we're not gonna actually get into the academics if your culture is completely hindering students from learning.
So like, would it be safe to say classrooms where you're walking in doing more like resetting and other things, like it's a culture?
Exactly. So we wouldn't even have to worry about this, because we'd want to step right back into like week 6 mode, so we can get those classrooms on track.
Can we talk about this? The execution.
Yes. In room, posted CFS and exemplar overhead.
That's a yes.
I said yes.
She has one generic one, and then she also had one on
It was in the packet, right?
in the package.
Okay.
Yep.
So where's the in-room one? Because I had the, on the paper, but.
I thought it was like the ones around the room.
There's one of her posters is a large like generic CFS, and then she had one specifically on the lesson.
First page.
Yep. Lesson plan and exemplar in hand.
Does it count if it's in Kingston because she was doing the circulator?
They both would need it.
Okay,
First lap,
so no.
and it's circulated with a pen in hand.
No.
And standard key.
No.
No. I said that one though was non-applicable because it was a do now.
Okay.
And that's something that in ELA we would do when actually reading.